Wait, that's the door shut. Jimmy, I've really been looking forward to talking with you because in all the years I've been doing interviews, I've never met you before.
No, we haven't done it together.
And so I am just thrilled to have this chance
Thank you.
to talk with you.
Thank you.
Especially your role in this movie. You are so funny, so
thank you.
absolutely
Thank you.
hilarious.
Thank you.
And I wonder, this character, is it true that Neil wrote it with you in mind?
Sure, but he does that a lot. I mean, he writes 4 actors that he knows and have worked with him before. This is my 6th or 7th project with him. But I first met Neil when I did an off-Broadway show called Next. And he came backstage and he had one act of a play he was writing called Last of the Red Hot Lovers, and he said, I want you to do this play on Broadway. And I said, is it a good part? And he said, well, it's the only male part in it. There are 3 women and 1 man. I said, oh, then that could make me a big star. So I don't think he ever forgot that. So I guess a lot of that was based on that too. And when we did Murder by Death, I mean, a lot of myself, you know, was incorporated in that role, and that's wonderful when a playwright will do it, especially if it's Neil Simon, because I don't think anybody writes better than he does. And the colors and the layers, you know, that come across with this character are very, very important. I mean, he will do a very comic scene, and then suddenly at the end, like in the scene where we're watching television, and I talk about how I always wanted to be Audrey Hepburn or whatever it is, he will suddenly end it with Jimmy saying, I'd like to be anybody but me. And you've got to know that there's something else going on with that guy, you know, and he's a wonderful character to play, and I would like everybody to leave the theater saying, I wish I had him as a best friend. But the relationships were terribly important in this film, and the response has been so marvelous, because that you know immediately from the very first day of a screening. People will come out of the screening room and either they say nothing or they say how much they liked it, and everybody's been very kind about this film. And I think a lot of people have said that they're tired of cartoons, and it's wonderful to see a picture about real people, and of course that's what it is. Other people can identify with.
Jimmy, before you were a big star, and that's one of the wonderful lines you have in the movie. You say, I want to be a star, a big star. Yeah. Before you were a big star, did you go through some of those things that Jimmy goes through in the movie? I mean, did you fail to get a hemorrhoid commercial?
Yeah, I failed. Well, not a hemorrhoid. Now that's Neil Simon's line, but I used to have, I worked as a dental assistant, and I remember stepping backward and breaking teeth, and I worked in coffee shops, and I worked in switchboard operators in hotels at night, the graveyard shift, so that I could make rounds during the day. And I came from a very poor family, and I delivered shoes, and I only had one thing in mind, and that was to become an actor. And I saved up all my money, and I kept going to school and classes and studied with people like Uta Hagen and things like that, and trying to perfect my craft. And there was nothing else that I wanted to be but an actor. And so I knew it was going to be a long, hard grind. I didn't know it was going to take 23 years before I got my first break, but I loved every minute of it. I mean, there was always that goal that one wants to reach, and it's a wonderful profession, a terrific profession to be in, and I'm crazy about it. I mean, it's exciting to me to get up in the morning and know that I'm going to a studio or going to the theater and going into rehearsals, what's better than loving what you're doing, you know? And sometimes it doesn't turn out so good, and then other times like this it turns out just fine and everything is sunshine again, you know, and it makes it all worthwhile. People often ask me, should I go in the theater? I say, yes, absolutely. If you have any feeling for it at all, of course go into it. You don't get a watch or anything after 25 years, like if you're in a, but you do get a lot of rewards. You get a lot of rejections too, and there are the bad times, and you have your ups and downs, but it's always exciting, because you never know when that phone will ring and somebody will say, I have a script for you, you know, and it's a script like this. And we had a wonderful time on this film.
Jimmy, what is, though, the biggest disappointment you ever had? Now, in the movie, for instance, Jimmy gets a part and he's so excited, and 3 days before opening, they fire him.
What a tragic moment that is, and all his family are already going to the opening night and everything like that. What's the biggest disappointment I ever had? I don't know. I know there were parts that I wanted that I didn't get, that I went after and didn't get those parts, and But then I got something else instead. And I remember one case where I had signed to do Man of La Mancha, and it was a 9-month contract. And just after I had signed to do that, they decided to make Last of the Red Hot Lovers into a movie, and I was not available for it. So I never got to play that part on the screen, and that was a disappointment. But then I kept running into people like Ethel Merman who said, well, I didn't do Gypsy, or Carol Channing who said, I didn't do Hello, Dolly. And you say, well, there it goes. So you do something else, you know. And you forget about that, and then something else comes along. Or if you do a play, and you work very hard on a play, and you work 5 and 6 weeks, and you go out of town, and you really think you've got something, and then you come into New York, and the critics bomb it, and it closes in a week, and you think, all that work, you know. But I think that whatever you do just adds to you as an actor. I mean, organically, you know where to draw things from. So that was easy. That scene was easy to play. Being fired at, 3 days before opening, because it's called sense memory, and you can relate to a lot of things.
Wouldn't there be something though in your contract or your union that would protect you?
Oh no, they can fire you. They'll pay you off, but they can fire you. But remember, this was just a little off-Broadway show he was fired from, and no, they let people go all the time. You know, I guess Jimmy just couldn't cut it, when he came right down to it, poor guy. And that's one of the beauties of Neil Simon, too, because just when you think everything's going to be okay, and you're happy that he's got the job and all of that kind of stuff, and she hasn't been drinking, and Toby seems to be okay, suddenly at this one birthday party, everything happens. I know I haven't seen the movie in its complete form. I just saw pieces of it, but the audience that I saw it with, when she goes for the drink for the first time, they verbalized it and said, no, don't do it, It's marvelous to get that involved with those people.
Jimmy, one last question. Is this woman, played by Marsha Mason, is she at all based on Elaine Stritch?
Now, isn't that funny? I have heard that she's based on Judy Garland, Maureen Stapleton, Elaine Stritch. I guess it's a composite. Originally in the play, she was supposed to have been a singer, so people thought it was Judy Garland. I think it's a composite of a lot of people that Neil has known. He does write with people in mind. That I do know.
So she's totally valid then.
Oh yes, yeah. That's a real lady. That's a real lady, and I don't know what the relationship with the daughter, I have no idea who that might be. Might be Judy. I don't know. I've never asked him that. I'll have to do that. I'll find out who that is.
Let me know.
And I know Toby is somebody too, and I'm not quite sure who that is. But I mean, even though he writes with people in mind, there's a big leeway. I mean, there are lots of things that he might say, well, if you were this instead of that. And then he writes a scene. I know that in the very beginning he didn't like the way the set looked, and he decided to write a whole scene how we repainted the apartment. But he's on the set all the time, and he works as if he works in the theater, and changes things all the time. He's miraculous.
It's a wonderful movie, and I think come Academy Award time, we're going to be hearing a lot more about this film.
I hope so.
Jimmy, what a joy.
A pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Super interview. Great.
Thank you.
Just great. Yes, I need audio too. And if you would cut it about like so. Okay, now the notebook's not showing, is it? I'll give you some reactions first. Okay, questions? Jimmy, is it true that Neil wrote this part especially for you? You have a line in the movie that you failed to get a hemorrhoid commercial. Did that ever really happen to you? in the script, you say, I want to be a star. I want to be a big star. Is that something that you have felt all along? One of the most heartbreaking things in this movie, as far as your character is concerned, is that you get a part and you're so excited, and then 3 days before the opening, you get fired. What a tragic disappointment. Is this character Marsha Mason plays, is that really based on Elaine Stritch? Jimmy, what a joy. Thank you very much. I enjoyed this. Okay. I believe that'll get it.